Welcome, fellow freaks, geeks, and nostalgic peeps, to my channel, Slime & Slashers, where, we talk about everything from Nickelodeon slime to horror movie slashers, but plenty of stuff in between, including books. Today's video, randomly, and rarely, I should say, I hardly ever do these videos, but I'm doing one for the second time this month, and that is a book tag video. So stay right where you are. We'll go to this short intro, and when we come back, I will be doing the spooky, scary skeletons book tag. So, like I said, go to the short intro, come back, I'll give my answers to the tag. Welcome back, guys! Spooky, scary skeletons send shivers down my spine. Do-do-do-do. That's nothing like it. I don't know, whatever. Anyway, I cannot wait to do this tag. I didn't even hear about this tag until I saw my friend Christine from Secrets Read, check out her channel. I saw her do this tag, and I said, hey, this seems like a lot of fun. So I'm gonna do the tag. It sounds appropriate for Halloween time. So I thought, whatevs, I'm gonna give the Spooky Scary Skeletons book tag a try. Alright, so first question, it's Witchy Mayhem. Name a book you loved or hated about witches. This is super easy. There's two books, both that I loved about witches. One is Slasher Witch at the Water Park, and it's literally exactly what it sounds like. It's one of those books like Clowns vs. Spiders by Jeff Strand, in that the title tells you everything you need to know about the plot. Slasher Witch at the Water Park is literally a witch who goes on a rampage at a water park. She is a swamp witch, and she wakes up after a long time asleep in her little bog, and she realizes that there's this park with all these people around, right by her bog. And she goes into the water park, and she starts to experience it. They keep trying to kick her out because she looks out of place, and so she gets mad and starts to kind of curse the water park. But she also is still continuing to have fun at the park. So she was, at one point, drinking frozen drinks, and she was calling them fro-fros. And that was my favorite part. She was like, oh, fro-fro! And she actually went to the gift store and bought a cute little octopus stuffed animal. So it was very cute, actually. Although there was some chaos involved and some killing involved. But it was a lot of fun. A short, quick read. I gave it, I think, a 4.5 star because it's so much fun. It's not the traditional type of slashing you think of in a slasher, but it was very unique and definitely a fun time. It would be a good summer read, I think, because of the water park element. So the second witchy book that I want to talk about that I loved, I also read it this year in addition to Slasher Witch at the Water Park, is Hex, and Hex was so good. So this was recommended to me by my friend Amy from Amy Noel Reads. She gave me two recommendations. I asked a couple of friends to give me book recs this year, and she gave me two. I didn't read her other one, but I am excited to read her other one because Hex was amazing. I gave it 5 stars. It gave me vibes of Pet Sematary, and if you've read it, you know why I compare it to Pet Sematary, but essentially we've got this witch haunting this small town, and nobody can really tell anybody outside of the town about her. They're not supposed to. She has her eyes sewn shut and her mouth sewn shut. I just thought it was a fantastic story. I really flew through it. I think I read it in one sitting, maybe a sitting and a half. Totally recommend if you like witchy vibes, and if you also like Pet Sematary, you might like Hex because of some of the similarities in like the story essentially. Second question, The Pumpkin King. Name a fiction book about a spooky main character. I've got two because for some reason I just can't pick one. I can't ever pick one. First up, Stitch by Mark Morris, and this is a book I've talked about a lot this year. Mark Morris has quickly shot up to be one of my very favorite authors, even though I've only read 2 books by him. Both of the books, they just blew me away, and I just cannot believe more people aren't talking about his work, because fantastic. This is a vintage book. It is harder to find, but it is very unique, very weird, and there is a creepy main character. We do have a character named Stitch, that is one of our characters. However, there are more characters who are influenced by Stitch, who do also become creepy and very off-putting. There is some mystery involved. There's a lot of characters in this, but there's also a lot of action. There's so many things that take place in this book. It's really hard to summarize what the book essentially is about, but just know that the imagery, specifically the horror imagery, is fantastic in this book, and it really shined. So I give this my highest recommendation, and it definitely has not only one creepy main character, but an additional creepy main character as well. My next answer is Krampus! So, Krampus the character in this book is very creepy, but he's also kind of cool and also funny. So he's a mix of things, and he's a very well-fleshed out, well-developed character, and I love that. So this is Krampus the Yule Lord by Bram, and he did such a great job at just making Krampus so multifaceted. And I listened to this on audio last December when I read this, and the audio was fantastic. The voice that the narrator used for Krampus was fantastic, very creepy sometimes, especially when Krampus got really mad. So I think this is a creepy main character, but he's more than just creepy. So I feel like he's creepy, but he's also cool, and he's also weird, and he's also angry, and he's also just very complicated. So I guess complicated is the best word for him, but creepy and complicated, I still think it works as an answer for this question. Orange Fever. A book with the word orange in the title, or a book with an orange cover. I thought I had more books with orange on the cover, but I actually don't. I have books that have hints of orange on the cover, but I don't have a lot of fully orange books. This not only is an orange book in my opinion, even though it's more of a light orange, kind of a yellowish orange, I still count this as orange, but this is one of my favorite books of all time. So despite it having an off or light orange color, and because it does fit the question, I'm mentioning it here, but separate and apart from that, this is just a great book. So I'll just take any excuse, honestly, to talk about this. Funny thing is, this is probably one of my least favorite versions of this cover. I actually like a lot of other editions of this book a lot more. And I wouldn't mind actually buying a different edition of this book because I love it so much, and I do consider it one of my favorite all-time books. This is such a weird book. It's not horror in the traditional sense, but it is a great character study, and there is a little mystery at the center of the story, but really you're following this family. The heads of the family, the mom and dad who run the carnival, they end up deciding to breed their own freaks to ensure the longevity of their carnival, and things just get weirder and weirder from there. If you care about characters and interesting characters and complicated, intense, like mind-boggling characters, then I would say check this out, because it's definitely very strange in terms of the characters that are represented here in these pages. But above and beyond that, it is also beautifully written, so it's a fantastic read in my opinion, and I'm so glad I was able to shoehorn it in for this answer for the orange cover. Next up, Ghouls and Ghosts. A book you love about ghouls or ghosts. That's pretty self-explanatory. First up, Ghost Story by Peter Straub. I read this last December, loved it. It's a super, super slow burn about these men in a small town. They're all friends, and they are reminiscing about this girl they all knew in their past, and she wasn't an ordinary girl. There was something sinister and something very off about her. So many, many years later, when they're older gentlemen, she's come back up again, and that's for a particular reason. And she seems to just be kind of a blemish on the town, and a blemish on these men's souls. We have to find out why, and that, takes a really long time, but there's just this creepy, great atmosphere throughout the entire story. I just love this book. I thought it's perfect for a winter read. Last but not least, Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill. I thought this was a fantastic book. It's actually not loved by a lot of people for some reason. A lot of people really don't like this book, which is fine. I happen to really jive with this. The main character, he was very unlikable at times. However, I was really compelled by the mystery of everything. I was really compelled to see what was going to unfold and what was going to happen, despite not being totally enamored with the main character, who could be kind of a douchebag at times, many times throughout the novel. That was still okay. Like I said, there was still a lot of intrigue in this book, and the story is just fantastic in my opinion. This guy, he orders a box that is rumored to contain a ghost in it, and then he starts kind of believing that there actually is a real life ghost in it, and he's actually getting haunted. Why is this the case? What is going down? We learn as we go through the story. And yeah, I just really had such a great time with this. This was a 5-star read for me personally. But if you're out there and you're one of those people who didn't like it, totally understandable. I just really happened to jive with Joe Hill's writing, I find, and this particular story was very intriguing and entertaining to me, personally. Number 5, Horrible Horrors, your least favorite horror, thriller, or mystery book. So 2 books that I really disliked that I read this year. One's a horror book, one's a thriller book. So the first is Nana by Mark Towse. I think that's how you say his last name. The reason I didn't like this, I think it's a personal preference type of reason I didn't like this and I didn't jive with it. I think other people might actually enjoy this, so I don't want to turn anybody off from reading this per se. I always recommend that people check out a book for themselves to make that judgment for themselves if it's for them or not. Don't just take my word for it and then say, okay, I'm taking this off my TBR just because I didn't like it. I never advise people to do that unless there's an extreme reason why. This one, there is no extreme reason why I could say, hey, take this off your list. I personally just didn't like how even before we get to the horror part, we get this really negative view of older people, and I don't like that because I love cutie oldies. I call them cutie oldies. So older people, I just really gel with them. I was really close with my grandparents growing up, and because this kid in this story, Nana, he's going to spend time with his grandma, he's not looking forward to it. He talks about how like gross she is, how she smells, and how old people smell, like, and the people in her nursing home smell, and I didn't like that. And then in the book, the old people aren't innocent like normal old people. So these aren't normal old people. So you could argue, well, they're not supposed to be likable old people or like cutie oldies like you like to say. But I don't know, it just felt like the main character, I really didn't like how he's predisposed to dislike his own grandma. It like seemed like he didn't even like love hanging out with her to begin with. And because I love my mama and papa so much, and my grandma and grandpa on the other side so much, I just found that hard to relate to and really off-putting. In fact, it made me really angry. I was like, I hate this, like, this makes me so mad. How could you not, you know, want to spend time with your grandma? And why would you say such mean things about your grandma? Why would you be so crass and flippant about your grandma or any of your grandparents? So anyway, and she wasn't like she was mean to him or anything, so there was like really no reason other than she was just old, and to me that felt like offensive. If it would read some like other way to someone else, that would be fine. I don't care if someone else likes it. I'm glad someone else might like the book, but I could not gel with it because to me, oldies are cuties, and that's just how it's always gonna be. So whatevs. Oldies are cuties, and that's what I'm sticking with. My second answer is a book I just read this month, and I literally legit hated it. So it's a thriller book, it's a YA book as well. There's No Way I Die First by Lisa Springer. I loathed this book because the teenagers were super cringy. There was a romance going on, even though there was a life and death scenario happening, which I found to be absurd. I know sometimes that happens in horror movies, but in a book it's even worse sometimes, especially a YA book with like a YA cringy romance that wasn't believable and was just silly to begin with. And all the main characters, this group of kids, they are all rich, and I just found that really hard to relate to. The very main character, I liked her for the most part. I liked how she loves horror movies. I liked how she was diverse, like a diverse character. I thought that part was awesome. What I didn't like was how I couldn't relate to her because she was so rich. I was just like, whatevs. Like, not saying I have anything against people who have money, I just could not relate to it, and I couldn't get behind them when they were like talking about, oh, this great Halloween party I'm gonna have where like I'm spending tons of money on this, and my parents are flying out of the country and I'm home alone, and I didn't want the kids to get killed, which is part of what's happening in the story. They're getting harassed and chased by this sinister killer clown. And that's not a spoiler, that's in the premise, but I just couldn't really get invested in the story because of just how cringy they were and how it was just like, oh, my life and this and that. It's like, I can't relate to this. So anyway, that is my little rant. I will not go on further about that. I'm so sorry. It's my rant. Number 6, Gothic Wonders. A favorite Gothic-themed book you've read in the past 5 years. I have a few. I'm not a big Gothic horror fan, but there are a few, especially Southern Gothic type of books, that I seem to gravitate towards. The first is The Elementals by Michael McDowell. It's actually got a Gothic feel, but it takes place on a bright and sunny and really, really hot beach. There are these 3 houses and these 2 families who have been friends and connected for a long, long time. They go to vacation down by these houses, by the beach, and spooky things are afoot. And it definitely reads like a Southern Gothic type of story, and it's beautifully written. It's by Michael McDowell, and I'm preaching to the choir because a lot of people on BookTube already love and already know of Michael McDowell, so he's a great writer. So I would say if you haven't read that one, you should definitely check it out. Definitely has Southern Gothic vibes, as I said already. Another book with Southern Gothic vibes, in my opinion, is Usher's Passing, and that is by my favorite author, Robert McCammon. It's not my favorite Robert McCammon book, but I did really enjoy it, and we definitely spent a lot of time with this family at their creepy mansion in this southern town, and they dubbed the place Usherland, and yeah, anyway, they say it like that's not even a southern accent, but they say it with a southern accent in the audiobook, and it's fantastic. There's a lot going on in Usher's Passing, but I think it's a fantastic story, and it's actually a continuation of the tale of the fall of the House of Usher by Edgar Allan Poe. So it takes place in that universe, essentially. And I think it's awesome the way they connected the beginning to Edgar Allan Poe. That was like my favorite part, I think. That was really unique. So that one might be an intriguing read for people around fall time. And my last honorable mention, because it isn't my favorite, out of these it's my least favorite, I would say, Mexican Gothic. I did really enjoyed this book. It surprised me. I wasn't expecting to like it because I thought it would be very, very romance heavy, but it wasn't. But it definitely brings the Gothic vibes, and it's a unique take on a traditional Gothic story because it's modernized and told through a different lens. And I thought it was very creative, very, very creative. And I definitely think it would be good for people who aren't pure horror readers, and also horror readers who are looking for something different and something lighter. I think it could be for a multitude of different kind of readers, and I think that's something that's special about the book. Number 7, Magic and Potions. A fiction or nonfiction book about magic and potions. Well, this one is going to surprise you. It's going to be a romance book that I freaking somehow loved. It's still my favorite romance book I've ever read, and I haven't read that many, but I just had such a great time reading it. It was very light, very fluffy. It's called Just Like Magic by Sarah Hogel, and the reason I liked it so much is because maybe it was so far-fetched. It definitely had a magical element to it. This girl, she accidentally summons the Christmas spirit, and he appears in the shape and the form of an actual man. And she gets all of these wishes, and his whole goal is to try to bring the spirit of Christmas into her heart and into her life, and to try to kind of brighten her life. And it just is a really cute, funny, heartfelt story, and I freaking loved it. I would totally reread it at any time. It's definitely my favorite romance book, and I'm looking to find another book that hits the same way because that was just such a great book, and it definitely had magic involved in it, so that's my answer for that. Number 8, Black Cats. A book about cats, or a book with a cat as a side character or the main character. So I've got a couple of answers for this. My first answer is Night Brothers by Sydney Williams. This is a book I just read very recently. It was a buddy read back in September with my friend Amy. I already mentioned her, but you could find her at Amy Noel Reads. This was fantastic. The panther that you see on the cover is in the story, so yeah, here we got a black cat on the cover and in the story, and this is definitely a different take on a vampire story. This vampire in the story that we're following, she can communicate with animals, and she can almost will different animals to help her do her bidding, and I love that. I thought that was very unique, very different, and there's more to this than just that. There's a whole thing with this small town, with this little newspaper, with this main couple. I just really had a good time with this. It was about a 3.75 star read. Not perfect, not anything amazing, but overall very enjoyable, and definitely features a black cat, as I said. Next up, a book called Black Cat, and this one is by John Russo. I listened to this on audio, and it was an animal attack book, but it was one that was very, very unusual and very different than the normal animal attack book that I usually read. So Black Cat, a big black cat, almost like this panther from Night Brothers, same idea. This big black jungle cat is featured in the story, but there's also human characters in the story. It's also about this guy who wants to have the power to feel like he's embodying an actual panther, and that he will have the strength and ferocity of a black cat. So it's also got a sexual element to it that was a little weird in the beginning, but mostly it's about like the mystery. It's got a lot of characters. It's just very unique for an animal attack story, and I thought it was well written. I had a great time with it. I think I gave it like a 3.5 or a 4. I'm actually thinking I gave it a 4 because it was so different. But yeah, that one definitely features a black cat, and it's called Flippin' Black Cat. And last but not least, this was already mentioned. Like I said, I saw this tag originally on Christine's channel, and she used this book as her answer, but I'm going to shout it out here because it's a great book. Last House on Needless Street has a cat character that we actually get to hear the inner thoughts of, and I love that cat, and I love the book, and I love Catriona Ward, the author of the book. So I just had to shout it out, even though I know it's probably going to be a lot of people's answer for this question, but whatevs. So I'm just going to tag along and be like, yo, yeah, I'm also going to mention this book too, because it's amazing. It's a great book. Last but not least, spooky, scary skeletons. Name a book that sent shivers down your spine. I usually don't get scared by any horror book, to be honest with you, but I will say one book did make me dream and did actually give me goosebumps and slightly scared me. Pretty much, which is the most I've ever been scared, is just like a slight, oh, I'm freaked out type of deal. So this book would be Stolen Tongues by Felix Blackwell, and I think this book is controversial, and I understand why. I totally understand why. I liked it a lot more than other people did, and I understand, like I said, why it's controversial and why not everyone jives with it and the representation in it. However, was it effective at being scary? Yes. I 100% think it was effective at being scary. Also, though, not only with the representation part of it, it wasn't perfect, but also it was a little repetitive. So it wasn't a perfect 5-star read, but in terms of scare factor, I think it was 5-star quality, because there were some scenes that truly, truly just creeped me out, and that never happens to me. There's an opening scene with a bird. It's like the prologue. That already off the bat is very creepy. That prologue is very effective. But then later there are these sequences that take place at night with the main character's girlfriend and her sleep disorder, and she's basically talking in her sleep almost as if she's awake, but she's not aware of what she's doing. And those scenes were just truly off-putting, truly unsettling for me. And yeah, I actually wound up getting goosebumps at one point. So did this send shivers down my spine? Necessarily no, but it did send goosebumps up my arm for like a millisecond. So there you go. Some book affected me somehow. My heart is not purely made of stone at all times. It's got a little hint of, muscle in there that could be kind of squeezed and like afraid of things. So whatevs. Anyway, those are my answers. The last thing is to tag some people, and I don't think Christine tagged him, but I'm going to tag my friend Andrew because he actually does tags, and I know he hasn't done this tag. So Andrew from It Came From The Page, check out his channel. I will tag him below, but if you don't feel like doing it, Andrew, no pressure. I know it's kind of late in the month to do a Halloween-themed tag, but hey, whatevs. I'm tagging you, but you don't have to do it. Alright guys, those were my answers. I would love to hear if you have any thoughts on my answers or how you would answer some of these questions. So let me know down below in the comments. I love hearing from you. I'm so sorry, I never respond to my comments, but I see them, and I'm gonna start just hearting them because I'm never gonna catch up on my comments, and it's so sad, and I'm the worst person in the world. But just know that the comments do mean a lot to me. I do appreciate them, and even if you don't feel like commenting, even leaving an emoji like a pumpkin always means a lot too, and it helps with the analytics. So I appreciate any and all comments, and I always read them, even if I don't get to freaking respond to them like a jerk. I'm so sorry. Anyway, thank you guys so much, not only for spending your time watching my videos, but for being so supportive like a lot of you are and have been for me. I appreciate it so very much. I hope you're having an amazing spooky season, and for this time though, that is it for me. Till next time, you guys know what you can do. Keep on killing it. Bye guys!